Hello, my name is Rebecca Florek, and I will be doing a presentation on the biopsychosocial paradigm, Pi, and Bronfenbrenner's ecological theory for SOC313, Social Implications of Medical Issues. Essentially, this presentation will provide an overview of how the biopsychosocial paradigm affects how a person develops. The biopsychosocial paradigm overlaps many of the same points as both Bronfenbrenner's ecological theory and the person in environment, or Pi. The biopsychosocial paradigm is important to understanding how a person's life experiences are influenced by their biological, psychological, and social development. The biopsychosocial paradigm, or model, is closely related to Urie Bronfenbrenner's ecological theory and the person and environment paradigm. All three models are centered around how social and environmental perspectives impact life experiences and development. Further evaluation of these paradigms will be presented to expand on how environmental influences impact human beings. If you look up at the screen, you will see Urie Bronfenbrenner's ecological model. And Urie Bronfenbrenner's theory on ecological systems focused on an idea that human development was interconnected and influenced by the environment. Factors such as family, culture, community, and what is going on in that time period need to be studied in order to see what makes a person's behavior develop. This theory on bioecological studies highlights the 5 interconnected rings that influence how a person develops based on their environmental factors. The microsystem, exosystem, mesosystem, macrosystem, and chronosystem all encompass each other and build off the next layer. The microsystem, the innermost layer you can look at, is pretty much your underwear. There, right next to your skin, are your family, your friends, your school, and your work. You are exposed to these factors every day, therefore they have the most significant impact on your choices and behaviors. The exosystem impacts how your inner circle lives. Factors include what kind of neighborhood you live in, whether or not you have access to medical care, and the economy. The exosystem is directly affected by actions from the mesosystem. If you are sick and go into the doctor's office, your quality of care may reflect what's going on in the doctor's life. For instance, high patient caseload, or if the doctor hasn't been sleeping well due to stress. You're going to pretty much get the quickest answer to your current problem, which may not be the one that's the best for you. The macrosystem is the culture you were exposed to. Say if you grew up in a Cuban community, you would have a smaller variety of restaurants to dine at, not to mention that you would be instilled with specific aspects of that culture, such as family values. The outermost ring is made up of the chronosystem. Aspects of this ring include major historical moments, such as the bombing on 9/11. The United States banded together as one single entity. We also saw increased airport security and racial profiling, but this is not the first nor the last time, unfortunately, that we as human beings judge what is different. By analyzing Bronfenbrenner's ring of ecology, I can pretty much break down how my influences and cultural aspectly in my environment have experienced and changed my life. When, for instance, I met my first real friend, we have to look at what was going on in the microsystem of my life. Growing up with my future husband as part of my microsystem was pretty much a happy circumstance. Our families met through my cousin, and in our own brand of weirdness, we pretty much adopted his family into our own. And living in different cities, our exosystems were different, and each of us had an impact on how or who we would grow up to be. Growing up in the city, he was more street smart and extroverted, while I was more sheltered and introverted, being from a small town in the country. His mesosystem was influenced by more gang violence and members within his microsystem partaking in more of an illicit, adventurous lifestyle. He grew up fiercely independent and never accepted help from anyone. On the other hand, my mesosystem allowed me a quieter, more nurturing pathway. I was the model student teenager. I was also fiercely independent for different reasons. My microsystem taught me that I was the only one I could really depend on. Though we had our differences in mesosystems, our macrosystem pretty much remained relatively the same. We were both instilled with a desire to work due to the pretty much hard time in the economic change around 2009. It both gave us a sense of importance in getting a stable job, and my path led me to the military, whereas him to the food service industry. In that time span, we have changed how we have shop for groceries, what vehicles we use in hopes of fuel economy, and the impact of government budget cuts. And to resume, if you go on to PI, the person in environment, the person in environment paradigm states that in order to conduct a thorough psychoanalysis on someone, that person's environment and social factors must be taken into consideration. This area of thought is particularly useful when it comes to social work. The baseline principle is worded perfectly in a quote by social worker Giselle Knopke. You cannot understand individuals without understanding their environment. And then Sigmund Freud theorized that a person's social interactions and environment, their school, their family, their religion, can have as much damage to the psyche as physical harm on the body. And relating to a person in an environment perspective, to Bronfenbrenner's ecological model, the micro, meso, and macro systems can be analyzed to show how environmental the environment affects human development and behavior. Alright, PI is essentially an analysis based on both psychological and social elements. In relation to social work aspects, my parents had a very nasty divorce that was emotionally scarring to me. I was 4 at the time, and I began to develop behavioral issues in order to deal with the turmoil I was experiencing. Coming from that broken family life, I had trust and disciplinary issues. My parents had a difficult time dealing with my behavioral outbursts, and I didn't have friends in school because I was much too aggressive in my actions. Examining the ecosystem, I moved from a low-end neighborhood to the country for pretty much a fresh start. The school itself was smaller, and the teachers could devote much more hands-on time to those who needed it. Then looking at the mesosystem, I started 2nd grade in a much smaller classroom environment where kids had more room to spread out and were used to far more chaos coming from larger families, so they tolerated more actions. In addressing the macro system, my classmates as well as the small community were more pretty much rough and tumble and could handle my aggressive behavior. They were much more able to forgive due to the fact that it was a small religious community that prided itself on acceptance. With the change in my mesosystem, I was able to cope better with my own emotional turmoil. I had friends for the first time in my life who were able to provide me with both emotional and physical support I needed in order to change my behavior for the better. Had this step not happened, it's very possible that I could have ended up in some kind of juvenile delinquency, detention centers, and my career choice and life choice could vastly be different. So in social work practices, education is important to realize that when trying to modify problems, aspects of both a person's emotional state and environment must be evaluated. One simply cannot change behavior without fully considering psychological and social interventions. Alright, moving on. The biopsychosocial paradigm. The biopsychosocial paradigm or model is important to understand how biology, psychology, and societal influences effectively create a person. In regards to health, this paradigm is crucial to a patient's treatment and overall well-being. The social standing or the environment will affect access to health care, and both social standing and biology will affect a person's psychological behavior. In order for medical intervention to be as complete and well-rounded to a person, it must take into consideration all aspects of care, to include the body, the mind, and the societal influences. A person's socioeconomic status will affect a person's social standing in terms of financial resources and social opportunities. These disparities can directly correlate to not only the access to health care, but to the quality of health care a person receives. Statistically, the poor populations in the U.S. have less access to health care or are given lower quality health care by providers. This percentage of the population has a higher risk of health inequalities than those because they cannot afford access to health care, insurance, they lack health literacy, they have a vague understanding of what their healthcare needs are, and they may not have access to preventive medicine or transportation. In terms of chronic illnesses and treatment, a provider must treat the patient as a whole. A patient suffering from a long-term disease is likely to have physical limitations, struggle emotionally, or face financial deficits. Financial strain can limit the amount of medical care a person receives, which can lead to a more rapid decline in health. This can create problems within the microsystem, as family members may have to take on additional work or pretty much a caregiving duty to the family member who is afflicted with, say, the chronic disease. This can create emotional hardships, and as the condition progresses, the mesosystem can be altered because the person may no longer be able to work and take care of their family financially. Other members of the microsystem may have to pick up extra work shifts or even lose shifts in order to take care of the family member. If the person is not able to work or bring in much needed resources, they may lose their home, have to rely on government assistance, or suffer emotional problems. The disease itself may cause the person to become depressed, have anxiety, lose the will to live, or act aggressively towards family and friends. If the patient lost his job due to being fired or let go, the employer may face legal allegations from the family for violating federal and state laws. These laws and how societal policies or norms stem from the macro system. Relating the paradigms together, Bronfenbrenner's ecological theory demonstrates how societal rings of influence demonstrate pretty much how our surroundings affect us, both behaviorally and developmentally. The person and environment paradigm analyzes both the psychological and social environments we are exposed to and create patterns of behavior and experience. The biopsychosocial model incorporates biological functions, psychology, and social aspects of human development and how they impact experiences. Bronfenbrenner's theory essentially deals with our environmental influences, how our family, friends, school, work, culture, and society impacts us. Pi adds to that, essentially that Bronfenbrenner only adds one more layer, and it adds psychology. Both of these paradigms remark on the importance of environment when analyzing someone's experiences. Like both Pi and Bronfenbrenner's ecological theory, the biopsychosocial model focuses the events and effects of environment on human behavior and experiences. Pi and the biopsychosocial model delve into the importance of psychology when it comes to adequate treatment, care, and interventions, which can alter behavior and mental status. The biopsychosocial model is important because, unlike the other two paradigms, it integrates how biology, both in terms of genetic inheritability and biological function, alter a person's experiences and development. All three models stress the importance of how the environment and a person is exposed to will influence and affect their life experiences. Alright, this is the list of references that I used, which can be browsed at your, I guess, lenience, and then if you have any questions, now would be the time to ask.